Well,
One,
welcome
two.
back to the Hit It podcast. This is going to be an amazing episode. I am super stoked to have the new USA Water Ski and Wake Sports Executive Director, Kevin Michael, here with me today. Kevin, welcome to the Hit It podcast.
Yeah, thanks, Tyler. Honor to be here. Let's have some fun.
Man, it just feels like this news is straight off the press and we're already recording this. It feels like, you hit it so hard and so fast. Social media is going this way, that way. Things are getting posted, but you've only been at this thing for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, that's true. But behind the scenes, I was aware of this position 3 months previous, back in October, and I've been working on it ever since then. The last month in particular, before I was hired, it's all I could think about, and just had ideas flying in, and I knew this was, you know, something I could handle and something that a lot of industry players and athletes were supporting me and telling me, this is all you got to do this. So there was a huge sense of support, and this is not something I take lightly. This is my life, man. This is what I've been after ever since I was a kid. And so I knew it was a good fit. But there's a lot of plate spinning, right? A lot of different people involved.
Well, what's amazing is I was looking through your resume and I'm thinking, like, there's no way this is even possible that this person could exist, and you do exist. 30 years in the industry doing all sorts of things with, towed water sports, and we're going to get into those, including being a professional skier at one point, right? So this is going to be an amazing journey. But I wanted to pick up with this quote that when it was hitting the press that you were hired, you quoted this. You said, "I am so impressed with the intelligence and experience of the core staff. The volunteer support throughout the all sport disciplines is incredible. I can't think of a more exciting role to play than orchestrating a new revolution and manning the spotlight for all towed water sports and the great individuals who participate." Let's talk a little bit about your vision. Let's get right into it. And we may take some steps backs and forwards here, but let's talk about this new revolution you're bringing to the table.
Oh, sure. And like, I got to start from the beginning in that, a lot of this attention that you're referencing is about me, but this sport is not about me. It's about everyone involved. So I wanted to highlight that in my quote. It was quick to press. There's a lot happening real quick during that time. But like, I was so impressed with the core staff. I mean, Scott Atkinson, 25 years he's been there. Sandy and Melanie. Sandy's been there 25, Melanie 35. They're incredible resources. Molly Crum, Chris Zukis, super intelligent. They're just bringing a lot to the table. We're making a new hire here soon, and that to me was just a great resource and just made me so excited because it's not just about me. It's about this great organization, the volunteers. Everyone on the board is a volunteer. Every sport discipline lead is a volunteer. Bob Archambault, Doug Robbins, these guys are heroes. Like, they're literally heroes of our sport. I was interviewing for a salaried position as executive director. The volunteers have my ultimate respect, and our sports are so lucky to have them.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I'll tell you, it's unbelievable, and a lot of the things that circle back on this podcast a lot of the times is that it's almost like a second family, or is the family of water skiing, with all the volunteers and all of the relationships that extend not only throughout the United States, but on an international level around the world. It's certainly a special place to be. Let's start here then. Kevin, you bring a huge resume to this position, but it all started with your journey of becoming a professional water skier. And then, kind of the dominoes of how you've stayed connected to the industry will follow. Talk to us a little bit about that experience and growing up on the lake.
Oh man. Just all I can remember is seeing the water and wanting to be on the water, and boats going by with water skiers in the 80s. Mom and dad got me into it just like a lot of us. My dad filmed me at one point after skiing, and he said, "What are your goals?" You know, I was 10 years old, fresh off the water, and I said, like, you could see in my eyes, there's no doubt. And I was on 2 trick skis, could barely do a 180, and I said, "I wanna become a professional water skier." And there weren't any pros in our area. The Aquanauts were there. That's an amateur club, and I just had it in my head. I don't know why. I think, you know, he took me to the Coors Light Pro Water Ski Tour, shortly after that, and maybe that had something to do with it as it grew. But you know, you just see something and you just want to do it, and you love it so much that you want to do it for the rest of your life, and like you have no doubt. Like it's almost like you didn't choose it. Like I heard Parks Boniface say in his documentary, like it chose me.
Sure.
And I could kind of relate to that. I'm sure a lot of us can relate to that. Like there's no getting around it. People ask you like, what would you be doing if you weren't doing this? Like, I don't know. Like,
Well, yeah, I told you the other day online, I'm like, growing up in the sport and going to the lake every day and skiing, training, having fun, you have like, what are other people doing that are not doing this? Because there's nothing else that you should be doing, right?
yeah, yeah. So, and you know, you mentioned family, like it gets tough, I will say, at this scale. We have 14,000 members, a lot of manufacturer stakeholders in this thing. So, you know, I've heard that a lot, and it is, you know, it resembles a family, but like it's so big that, and where we're going with this thing, it's more of a community. So I like to kind of reframe that because family
Sure.
can get bad. I've seen it in family businesses and stuff when things don't go right. It's, oh, you said we were family. You know what's up with that? You know, I just seen that maybe not be the best descriptor. So I like to consider it a community, and a really fun one at that.
Sounds, yeah, no, community. I love that. And it sounds like as a community, you're bringing to the table, what you're calling kind of this new revolution of, there's a lot of good things. Obviously, our sport is incredible, has an incredible history, but the way that things are trending, we're probably going to see some changes. And as you look back and you say, okay, well, I've run the labyrinth, right? I've been a professional athlete. And by the way, still the youngest Skip Gilkerson Award winner at 18 years of age. I mean, that's an incredible rally for that many years to have earned that award. But then, you turned into a media guy. You turned into a content creator. You've been a consultant, an ambassador. You've been in Washington, D.C. Basically working on legislation all the way up to managing, directing, and now the executive director of our sport here. What's that vision? What's that look like going forward?
Sure, sure. Yeah, and I got to touch on a couple of those points you made real quick as we get there. You know, the revolution that you mentioned. You know, I'm a media guy, I'm a promoter, I'm an ambassador. I'm not going to go into the numbers, but it's no secret that our participation needs something. It needs something to grab onto. There are members that have been here decades, that are desperately looking for the key to something bigger and something greater for what happens behind the boat. Because we've all been through heydays. They had it in water skiing, they had it in wakeboarding, and we know what that feels like. And it's not necessarily in the air right now. So I feel a sense of desperation from the skiers, and my kind of media, you know, mind says like, let's revolt against this. Like, what can we do? Everyone asks me, what can I do? Let me know how I can help. And I kept telling everybody, like, I need you on the water, and I need you teaching people for their first time how to do anything behind the boat. And so that became kind of like a desperate revolution that, you know, we're kind of lightly kicking off, and it will become more of a theme. But anyone that asks me what they can do, like, get on the water and like introduce people to this sport and support the industry by buying equipment. That's literally the 101 of how this thing works. And, you know, yeah, I had early success. You know, I guess being in Wisconsin, I'm surprised like my sister and I had so much success. You know, we went to Japan. I was like 19 years old, to ski with Stars of Florida. And the skip thing's funny, the skip award, because I told the story a few times, but it never gets old. Zane Schwank was also skiing at that event. And It's the one day of my life that I can say people thought I was a better water skier than Zane Schwenk. So I remind him of that often. But he's the greatest. He's my favorite show skier of all time because you never knew what was going to happen when he hit the water. It's like all eyes like on him. Guys like Zane and guys like Parks Bonifay, their spirit is something I'm trying to like bring into this revolution. Just I think it really needs a sense, our approach really needs a sense of levity. And, that means when something gets really serious, like competition mode, whatever, like finding the humor in that, like, taking the weight out of a heavy situation. And like Zane and Parks and like so many others, Wade Cox, whoever, were like people I looked at like, and I could relate to. And like, that's what I think a lot of this needs. Like you can take it serious in your preparation and all that inside your own head. When you show up on site, man, like all that preparation's done. Like it needs to be fun, like you might not set a world record that day. You probably won't set a world record or even a personal best. So like you still got to have fun, man, because this is the greatest activity on the planet and like the most exhilarating activity. And there's just so many benefits of being on, in, around water, the blue mind theory. So, I'm trying to kind of live that example, which has always been my approach. But yeah, that's one thing. And then I think you mentioned something about, our vision and what we're looking for in the future, Ty.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. What is that? Because I mean, just looking you right in the eye here on this podcast, I've got a jumper on your t-shirt. I got Team USA on the beanie, right? Is that Sammy?
This is actually Tom Weber.
Okay. Yeah. Tom
Yeah.
Weber.
Yeah.
And then I'm looking behind you. You've got some Cypress Garden skis. You've got a Skirfer. You've got a wakeboard. You've got that crossover slalom ski that we're starting to see more and more out on public water. Like this vision to me, the bandwidth of it seems really like we're not looking narrowly at, competitive water skiing. This may branch out into many facets. And that's kind of, what is that vision? What's that spectrum look like?
Sure. I mean, to narrow it down and put it in as simple terms as possible, there's no secret about my job description and what my job is. Every single member that has talked to me, board member and otherwise, wants growth. They want growth. Financials are very important. Nate Boudreau, the executive director before me, put us in a great position financially. And, to me, it's not a priority thing. It's either black or white. Like it just needs to be done. The financials need to be solid, cash reserves, all that stuff. I have experience with that at WSI. I learned from the greats, of our industry and financial acumen. Nate's got a very high level of acumen. He put me in a great position. So going forward, I don't, this isn't necessarily about what I think, it's what the board thinks. I operate at the wishes of our board of directors and our members. We're a membership-based organization and they pay money to enter our tournaments. So I listen. And that's what I was doing for 3 months before during the interview process, I listen. And every single person wants growth. They're sick of the decline and they think I can do something about it. And I believe I can. So the vision in simple terms is to grow, to have a year of positive growth for our total membership. And so that, I mean, I think, a lot of people are very linear in their approach to these activities. And that's cool. And that's great. They're needed. My approach, and I guess, you can thank show skiing for that. We think about what else can we do behind a boat that hasn't been done. And to me, that keeps it fun, that variety being the spice of our existence. And I can really just, I'll go out barefoot. I'm getting into slalom again. You know, Regina's trying to get me go off the jump again. Like there's a lot of options for like what I could do this weekend on the water. And to me, that'll keep me busy for a lifetime and then some.
Well, you mentioned it a couple of times. You listened for 3 months. You were through the interview process for 3 months. Tons of applications, I would assume, for a position like this. And you're talking about a board. that's just the heart and soul of the volunteer spirit of just wanting the best for the sport, willing to interview this for 3 months, right? And tell us a little bit about that process, because that sounds like a tough process to go through, but it sounds like on the other side of that, you know exactly what the board is looking for.
Yeah, I'll admit the process was gnarly. It was heavy, man. I've been fortunate, you mentioned my career. I've rarely had to interview. I've interviewed a lot of people. I've interviewed outside of the industry, for jobs outside of the industry, and I hated that. I I hated it. Um, I had okay success outside the industry, but just didn't feel right. So I've been fortunate that, at WSI, I was already working there. I was already doing their communications. So I just, climbing the ladder, whatever. Wakeboarding magazine, same thing. Um, so, this was, I think there were a couple hundred resumes. I think this is what I've heard. It was cut down to 50 resumes that were considerations, and then 25 of those got interviews. That was the first round of interviews on Zoom. Second round of interviews was 12. So I made that cut. And then the final round of interviews were 3, and I made that cut. And we all gave presentations to the board at the board meeting. And I'll tell you, Tyler, like, looking at my resume and based on my experience and my understanding of this job, from the beginning, I had a high confidence level that this is a match. I'm sure as a skier, like, once you reach a certain level at something, like, let's say slalom, you're one of the best slalom skiers. Who, if there are others that are as qualified as you know who they are.
Sure.
And that's kind of how our industry is. And I was looking at my unique, everything in the job description is wild. I like highlighted it. Everything they're asking in the job description, except for some of the Olympic Committee stuff. Every single item in the job description I had done, and I had had success. So I knew there wasn't anyone else that had those unique experiences that I did. But I will say, like, Bob Archambault is a recruiter, professional recruiter, and he knows you can't say that you have favorites during the process. You have to say everyone's equal, everyone's even. So I was talking to people and they're like, oh yeah, you got this, you got this. And then I talk to people and say, hey man, like, this is really close. Like, they don't know, you guys are dead even, blah, blah. And there's some great candidates. I don't know who they all are. But I just want to give a shout out to any of them that might be listening. Like, please reach out to me and, like, let's figure out how to get you involved. Because that was a really hard part for me, to deal with that. I'd call people and be like, hey dude, I'm interviewing for executive director at USA. They're like, oh, so am I. So I kind of like stopped talking about it to certain people, and like, I just kind of locked myself up in here, and just, it's all I focused on, as family and whatever, taking care of myself. And then it was this, and I would try not to think about it. And like, ideas were just flying in. I'm like, I couldn't turn it off.
Sure.
But it was a gnarly process. And even after the interview, like the presentation, I just really dug deep, man, and went with like media exposure, like Brian Grubb off the skyscraper in Dubai, and Parks barefooting behind the F1, and like that classic shot of Sammy Duvall, like doing the impossible cut at the ramp with the huge crowd, and just Thomas Herman's triple flip and stuff like that. And then just showed my experience and like my vision. I worked on that presentation every day, all day, and it's so much was cut out of it because we had to fit it into 30 minutes. And then there's question and answer. Like, I cut so much out. But like, so we gave that on a Sunday morning. And then, you don't know, you don't get indicators after an interview. That one I did because I was in person, but on Zoom, man, you hang up and you're like, okay, what am I going to do for the next couple of days? Like, this means everything to me. Like, this is my life. This is my entire life,
Sure.
that was going into this. And granted, it's water skiing, so like, what a great thing to focus on. But Monday went by, Tuesday went by, and I'm talking to people, man. I'm trying to just get my mind off. Wednesday goes by, not a word. And like, you know, there's HR stuff going on in the background, and they're preparing a contract and all that type of thing. So they need time. Again, these are volunteers. Like, they did 36 hours of interviews,
Wow, that's
a whole
incredible.
interview panel, including athletes that aren't on the board. So hats off to them for the process. But like, I think it was Thursday night, I get the call, and like, dude, I can't explain like how that felt.
Wow, that's incredible. And thank you for providing all that background and the context. I think that's amazing to hear that about our board. And wow, well, congratulations. I mean, there's so much to go forward with now. You know, you talked about this a little bit, and I'd like to pause on it because you're one of, you know, we're getting into the generation where you experienced the momentum early in the 80s or late 80s to 90s of kind of what water skiing was and in the show skiing world, and then made the transition to wakeboarding, which took off like a rocket, you know, through the early 2000s. And you know what that momentum felt like. Like that's what how you framed it at the beginning of this conversation. um Tell us a little bit about that momentum, because you've gotten to ride the wave a couple of times and you feel like, you know, we're at that need right now. Hey, can we get another push of momentum? I just wanted to get your perspective on that.
Yeah, sure. That's a great question. I have experienced what that feels and looks like, and I know a lot of these listeners probably have too, in the late 80s and the early 90s, on the water ski tour. Wakeboarding, I realize there's still a certain group out there that's a four-letter word, you know. To me, I think competition can be healthy, you know, within our group. Uh, so you know, I grew up a trick skier. All I wanted to do is do a flip on my trick ski. And so when a wakeboard came out, I was like, whoa, you just feel the pop, even on the low pole, like pop. It's like, whoa, this is kind of what we were looking for. And
Sure.
so got into that with influences like, you know, Zane and other people. Uh, you know, Anthony Monaco, he's at Nautique now, but we ordered 4 wakeboards from Connolly. Um, and Eric Ruck was the early day wakeboard, and Dano the Mano. We all came from the Aquanuts and Twin Lakes. So, you know, it was just so fun. I mean,
Yeah.
wakeboard, like you got being inverted above the water is my favorite thing. I was a big freestyle jumper, and like the idea of being upside down and then landing on your feet on the water, and like crowd response, it was always like a big crowd response during shows, and like that was my favorite thing to do. So wakeboarding, just like, I was on it early. You know, once a compression molded board was invented by Herb O'Brien, and the boots were good, that's when it took off for me. And yeah, I just kind of rode that wave. I was a skier at SeaWorld, and we get 2 aeronautiques every year. We had 5 boats every year, at SeaWorld in San Antonio. But I had an injury. I thought I was going to be a show skier for life. Had an injury. I had my degree in mass communication, so they got me a job launching websites at World Publications, which was also World Entertainment, who contracted us as show skiers and ran the Pro Water Ski Tour and the Pro Wakeboard Tour. So obviously, this is 1998. So obviously, wakeboarding is starting. That's where all the revenues, not all, but most of the revenues coming from at that time. You couldn't deny the excitement and the feelings and the energy of where that was going, and the boat sales. Boat sales are what drive, you know, all the success in events and all that, and then non-endemics. So where it was like the Coors Lights and the Bud Dries or whatever back in the day, it was the energy drinks in the early 2000s. Rockstar, Red Bull, Monster, like there were others. But that's where the big money was coming from, and the big opportunities for athletes. So what that felt like, man, in a snapshot, I remember several times our issue was going to print, and we'd have to stop the press because someone would want to run another spread. And we said, wait, there's already about 20 spreads in the front of the magazine. We don't have room. Okay, we're going to grow the magazine 8 pages. We published a 212-page magazine during that run. And that's a lot of editorial that we had to come up with too. But it was out there, man. We were just filling pages. And like, I'll never forget that the average sales reps being like, hey, Billabong wants 2 spreads or whatever it was. And like, hey, we got to grow. I'm like, all right, I got photos, so let's run. And we had the highest EBITDA in the whole publishing group. I think there
Mhm.
were 30 titles, and us and Marlin magazine had the highest EBITDA. I think it was like 30% or something crazy.
Wow.
Huge margins on that magazine, great revenues, and we fueled the tour. So we go out on tour, man, and you'd see it, crowds, people's faces, reactions, walking through an airport with Sean Murray, and people know him. Walking around Seattle Seahawks stadium with Parks Bonifay, 3 different groups of people call him out and say
Wow.
like, "Oh my God, there's Parks Bonifay." Like, I walked into a Perkins restaurant in Nowheresville, Florida, north of Tampa, with Bob Sobin when him and Phil had the Wake Brothers show on MTV. The whole restaurant stopped what they were doing because the staff had to get photos with Bob. And
Wow.
like, you start seeing that stuff and you're like, okay, that's how it feels, you know. And then just walking through an airport, finally they know what a wakeboard means, what a wakeboard is at baggage, and you know, just X Games, trips around the world with Nike.
Mhm.
Nike sent us everywhere. I went to the Philippines 3 times, Tahiti with Billabong, Australia with Body Glove. I mean, when you're doing that kind of high, and they're inviting me, and they're paying my whole way, so I didn't have to spend out of our editorial budget. Um, those are just some examples of what that run felt like.
Wow. I mean, that just goes to not only the domestic experience, but the international experience of how big water sports can be in that context and that ride. You know, this podcast, we've been so fortunate to have it, and we have an amazing sponsor in Visit Central Florida, and you guys are located right there in Central Florida. Look at that on your microphone. There's the logo and everything. So, so let's shift there. Um, what does towed water skiing mean now and into the future for Visit Central Florida?
Yeah, so it's no secret that Central Florida is the water ski capital of the world. You can't deny it. So yeah, they're using it as a slogan, but it's not a stretch at all. Like,
No.
it is. I mean, I grew up in Wisconsin, and you know, one thing that has maintained itself through my whole time on the water, 42 years now, uh, it's, you know, Orlando, Central Florida in general, Winter Haven, um, Polk County, like, it's a hotbed, dude. All the hitters are there or within the area, and like, everyone wants to come here from the entire world to ski and hang. Weather's great, tons of lakes, glass water. Um, you know, and I think we need to lean in on that. It's always benefited us as an industry to have that kind of Hollywood, you know, that Hollywood vibe. Uh, you know, we want to be welcoming to the Joel Polans and the Thomas DeGasperis. You know, they come here and have professional careers. So we're ambassadors for the entire sport worldwide, and we're going to be throwing a ton of killer events. I'm so excited about the complex. Like, it's been in the works for a while, and I know it hasn't been a straight road. But dude, Champions Lake, it's called Championship Lake, but I think people are going to call it Champions Lake. It's dug and it's great, and there's a ramp out there, and it's killer. Um, you know, John Travers is putting in the course just here in a couple weeks. My office is there. I'm going to be there as much as possible. It's the official training center for Team USA, and we are
That's
part of the
amazing.
U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee. So it's not the International Olympic Committee, but we're on the U.S. Olympic Committee. And you know, I after my interview, that last presentation I was telling you about, I just like decompress and just wanted to drive around. Dude, I pull up to this lake, and like, I'd been there before for a night jump event that Central Florida put on, Visit Central Florida put on. But like, I was just looking around, man. And you know, when things, I don't know, there's just something in the air when things just click. I'm like, this is gonna be big. This is a dream. Like, I might have an office here. I have this lake, and I kept driving around. There's a whole camp Margaritaville with a ton of RV slips and a ton of cabin rentals right on the lake
Wow.
with like tiki bar, banquet hall, like, dude, are you kidding me? Like, it's a bummer that Elite Cable Park shut down. But we'll be able to use that space for, you know, some like show ski type demos and like just a fun circular lake to go have, maybe recreational and first timers can learn out there. But this complex, there's soccer fields everywhere, baseball fields everywhere, tons of kids. And it's like, I want signs up saying learn to ski. And
Sure.
like, I want to help this thing grow because a lot of what I'm doing in the first couple weeks is like connecting dots. And, people talk about our foundation as separate, but I don't see it that way. It's our foundation. And I want to be responsible for all the perceptions that exist. And I'm going to embrace our foundation. They're the ones that run the Hall of Fame event and all that stuff and got that complex project off the ground. And, they build this job as remote, but I told them very certain terms, like, I do not want to be remote. I don't want to be remotely remote. I want to live it. I want to do this 24/7. Like, I'm not messing around. And like, it's not about me. This is just like where my interests lie and it needs work. And like, I want to live for this. Like, I want this to be my life. Like, I can't, see anything else that I'm as passionate about as this and think I can make a difference for than this. So like, I don't want to hype up the training center too much because it needs a lot of work, but there's going to be a jump, there's going to be a course. And like, Regina's already talking about wanting to train out there with her Malibu. And, I just have a great vision for that. And we need to put that in action. But like, I'm going to start working out there all the time. And we're going to make it happen, man.
Yeah, no, excellent, and that's great to hear that that is going, and there's that excitement building around that. And going back to Team USA a little bit, you imagine kind of being in that particular space where, a lot of dreams of water skiers started when they were kids. Maybe like for you, maybe it was going to that pro tour stop. Maybe for a kid that's playing soccer, looks up at that billboard and goes, "Man, I think I want to go try that. That looks a little bit more fun, and I don't have to run around in the heat. I can jump in the lake." But the goal of a lot of skiers of that age is to one day be on Team USA and represent our country. And I just wanted to hear your perspective on that because I know your job and your job title goes to effort and to support that and facilitate those efforts among our athletes.
For sure, and that's a great point to bring up. There's mixed perceptions um, about the value of us belonging to it, and I'm going to need some time to really articulate why this is so important. Because I'm learning, dude. They have Zoom calls with me. Like, I probably have 18 to 20 Zoom calls in
Wow.
these first 2 weeks of like different areas of compliance and all stuff. And there is some red tape, man. But dude, I will tell you, any time that water skiing has a chance to be a part of something bigger, we need to grab a hold of that and maximize that opportunity. I'm in an executive group with, the director of US Pickleball, USA Wrestling, USA Artistic Swimming, and we're like, "Yo, what are you doing about music rights? Like, how are you handling this and that?" And like, anything financial, like they're here to help me. They provide insurance for our top athletes. So if you place first in any division in the pro um, events, there's health insurance, and I'm learning that there's grants, straight up funding that comes from this relationship. Safe sport, unfortunately, is very much needed, and there's a lot of hemming and hawing about that and the barrier to entry, and that's real. But like, I will tell you, I've learned so much about this, and at the end of the day, man, a lawsuit could break us. That stems from any of that nonsense with these creeps out there that do exist, and it sucks. But we need safe sport, straight up, and that's all I'm going to say about that. Um, I think inspiring a competitive drive, like you mentioned, like the media promotional guy in me is like, Team USA, let's go. Like, let's rock this thing. I get it. It's an individual sport and it's an individual endeavor for a lot of our skiers, but Team USA is kind of something that unites us, as a force. So I think it promotes the competitive drive, even if you're just competing against yourself, which in a lot of cases we are, a personal best, like those type of things. That's what, the Olympics are all about, like that spirit. Best practices, we can share best practices. I was on a call about their training centers, and they gave me all these ideas for our training center and how we can brand it to look Olympic. There's just a wealth of great, you know, business practices and ideas for sports sustainability. So it's like, you know, we were talking about this revolution, like, yeah, it could happen. And then, you know, things could taper off again. Like, this is a long-term deal, Tyler. Like, new sponsors and like my approach to this, it's like, there's a lot of excitement right now, but I want people to be patient and really, you know, not judge things until we're like 3 years down the line from this, 10 years down the line for this. Cause like one thing they really preach is like sports sustainability in these US Olympic and Paralympic committee meetings. So that's, you know, part of the vision is like 10 years from now. Like, how are we
Sure.
going to leave this thing for our kids and their kids? And like, you know, if you think about it in those terms, like this is a really important time.
Yeah, no question about it. And it's interesting, you know, you get the opportunity when you put the USA hat on, so to speak, like you're wearing, and you have those conversations against different sports in different areas, and they're doing different things. They may not even know what water skiing is, but they do now. And oh, by the way, some of those sports could have athletes that are on the national and international stage that we could potentially say, hey, you want to check out water skiing? And that's part of kind of this vision to elevate our athletes, which we know are the most athletic people in the entire world, right? To elevate them to a celebrity type of status and showing them what I think is the most incredible lifestyle on the planet is the lake life, right? Like the opportunity to do what we've been able to do over our lives and share that with people, but talk about elevating this lifestyle and then also elevating the athletes that are at the top of our sport.
Sure. Great point. 100% accurate. I've worked with athletes quite a bit in my day, and I've, you know, managed athletes. They told us at Wakeboarding Magazine, like, you're essentially, they don't have managers. So you're managing their careers. And I was like, whoa, that's not in the job description, but like we were responsible for their image. Okay. And no matter how big or small your Instagram account is, like you can still manage your image. And this is very important for any, you know, aspiring professional water skiers to look at. And you know, I like to keep it fun. Like I think the lifestyle element really can be your area for like fun activity, because that's what bonds, you know, evokes emotion and relatability is like fun lifestyle on the boat. There's music involved. Music is such a huge part of what we're doing. The marine audio segment is a great you know, that's a great segment of our industry. um so, you know, I want to really be some like a tool that the athletes can use to elevate their careers. In my view, there's three types of professionals. There's the not let's say number one, you don't have to worry about anything but your craft. Wakeboarding had a ton of these. They just wake up, you know, maybe they go to some boat shows and like they have to show up at events, but it doesn't matter how they place because they're marketed for their lifestyle and their craft. Two, I would say is like professional. Yes, you're getting paid, you're getting prize money at events, you have sponsors, and then you work for your sponsors as well. Let's say like Ronnie Barton, the queen, right? Like she's like, so I'm so impressed. Just I've known her for a long time, but just getting to talk to her more about all this stuff. You know, she's always worked in the industry. And I think that's a great avenue for a lot of these like athletes that are deciding what they're going to do. And the third professional is the one that shows up at the contest, but then maybe works in finance or
Right.
has a 9 to 5 that's completely, maybe a Dane Meckler or someone that would like
Yeah.
fall into that category. So my goal is to turn the threes into twos and the twos into ones.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Oh, I love it. That's awesome. Well,
Mm-hmm.
and that is very exciting, right? Like if you're a professional skier right now listening to this, you've got to be excited about
Let's
it.
go. Like
Yeah,
it's
let's
on. Like we're
go.
not messing around. Yeah.
Well, and I know to switch gears a little bit, our audience, a lot of them are three event water skiers. And being a three event water skier, regionals and then nationals is kind of that, you know, that is that marker that everybody's got their calendar marked to go compete. And I wanted to talk to you about the Good Nationals because, Good has been such a gracious sponsor for a long, long time. This year we head out to California. What is that going to look like for us?
Um, that's going to evolve into something very new compared to what we've done in the past. I'm going out there in March, just in a couple weeks. I'm gonna go and we're gonna start the hype train. I'm gonna go talk to the mayor. I'm gonna go talk to Visit Bakersfield that exists, by the way. Visit Bakersfield. We're gonna go and like interview them. We're gonna visit all the local boat dealers that are in the area, get them hyped on the event, and make them feel a part of this thing. We want to market. We want to market to like the bigger regions, like you mentioned, LA. This is LA. I want to go to UCLA water ski team and be like, "Yo, come out here. Let's go for a shred and like figure this out. I need your whole team with boots on at this event, and you all need to compete, and you all need to invite your friends, and you all need to come out and have a good time." I'm gonna have a much bigger picture of how this is gonna look after this visit. But I want to go get in the water, ski with Joe and Roger Welling and all those guys, go out for a rip and just start the hype train moving. I'm, again, putting the media hat on, like pre-press is very important for these events, college students, anyone in the area that's within driving distance. And then, we got to get people to get on a plane, bring their ski, sign up, get a hotel, and like make something out of this. We're in this with Good for another, I think we're in a 10-year contract. And
Wow.
so like they want traffic in their booth, man. I talked to Chris and like before I even had this job, I was talking to Chris about it. And, you know, there's just, it seems like we need some excitement and more of a festival type atmosphere. I think festival will work more in the collegiate area, but there needs to be more of a hook. We're working on the webcast. The webcast needs funding still. This was a surprise to me that you know, we're crowdfunding a lot. Crowdfunding exists so much in this world, and I didn't know how much because I've been fortunate to ride the waves like we spoke of earlier, where we had tons of rich parents, but they weren't reaching in their wallets for anything. Like, little Johnny was getting paid to fly everywhere. So, you know, the webcast though, in my opinion, like Vince and those guys at TWBC, like they're gangsters. Like we're so lucky to have them. And but they have costs and like their rates super fair. But there is a donation on GoFundMe for the Good Nationals to be webcast. My goal is to come in next year and like funding the webcast isn't even an issue. We
Yeah,
gotta like
no.
really
And
drum up some support, but we need sales. Like boats need to sell. That's a whole nother topic, maybe for another podcast. But equipment needs to sell. And like slalom skis last what, 10 years? Like they don't break. And that's good. And it's also a problem. Wakeboards might last you 1 season, 2 seasons tops, and you're buying a new one and you're happy
mm,
to. So the only way to sell new skis is to get new skiers. And collegiate is our laser focus for that opportunity.
well, and I just want to put a little blurb in there about the webcast. It's such an incredible webcast. I remember a couple years ago, I had the opportunity to ski in Illinois and to watch the webcast and those guys cover that entire tournament. I mean, I remember just walking by. I mean, for whatever how many days we were there, a whole week, and the product they put out is absolutely incredible. So make sure if you're going to check that out, or you want to watch somebody that's going to ski there, that's the best way to do it, right? Is to watch the webcast. You made a great point. We're going to Bakersfield, and one of the waves that I think we're beginning to ride and we're beginning to pick up the energy from is collegiate water skiing. You mentioned bringing UCLA out there, and collegiate water skiing, uberly successful in our sport, but it's really a fall season sport. It doesn't sometimes make the transition to 3 event skiing during the summer and then ending at the nationals. Talk to us about your perspective of what you're seeing from collegiate athletes and what that can do for us in the summer.
I'll cut to the chase on this, man. All you got to do is go watch Rob Hazelwood's video of last year's nationals on YouTube. It's Syndicate. Syndicate Collegiate Nationals, just search. It's an 8-minute video, action-packed festival atmosphere, kids having the time of their lives. And like that's my vision, is to like encourage this and promote this. Festivals, my daughter's in the live music industry and works all the major festivals. They're huge. And like the new generation is, in general, they're a little frugal when it comes to like buying a home or like buying a new car. They're like very smart with their money in that way. Dude, when it comes to experiences, all bets are off. Like, dude, they're shelling out. They will shell out. Look at like Taylor Swift tickets or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, dude, they will spend so much on music festivals. So like, I'm just connecting some dots here, man. Austin Duvall, Sammy Duvall's son. We're in early talks, and like, there's no contracts on the table or anything like this. But I just want to give you an example. You understand the way I think. He runs the coolest apparel company called Duvin. You can look them up at duvindesign.com. It's like those like modern Hawaiian shirts, off the wall sayings, and like matching trunks, like the hip
Yeah.
poolside party wear. And I showed him the video. He hadn't been approached by USA. I'm like, dude, this is Sammy Duvall's son. Like, this is low, like, and I'm not offering him a contract. I'm just like, dude, this is right up your alley. I can tell. He watched the video. He's like, oh yeah. He's like, I saw 3 of the skiers like wearing our trunks already. I was like, no way, this is like, so I don't know. That's just an example of like getting companies like that involved. I want them to sell some merch. Like, that's what it's all about. Like, what if they could do team fits for like UCLA's team or something, like they're really creative in that way. So that's a way to like embrace the lifestyle, give it a look and feel. Apparel companies, like they work with Dwayne Wade and,
Yeah.
athletes of that nature. So, we might be kind of small, but I'd like to think that they have a, you know, liking and a, heartwarming element to water skiers. But we'll see how that goes. And then like, marine detail companies, just I have a lot of like marine accessory relationships from my time at WSI. We were the trade association for anyone that did business in towed water sports. So I've been to all those trade shows, accessory shows, boat shows, conferences, like NMMA, National Marine Manufacturers Association. So that's part of why I'm here, is to use those relationships. But dude, I'll tell you, like, I only want to work with the right products and the right people, and so those are kind of who I'm reaching out to very carefully. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, we've talked a little bit about media here, and I want to talk about the Water Skier magazine, right? Because this is right up your alley, right? I mean, going back to your days at Wakeboarding Magazine and doing the things you've done there, are we going to see any changes with the magazine?
Yes. I do like its current design. So we're not going to give it like, oh, new redesign. It's going to be like a slow roll into this. My experience with like websites, or like in this case, like it's easier than doing like one, overnight redesign. So Scott Atkinson's been awesome. Like, he's such a great utility shooter. Like, he gets the job done, and he's just like killer. So he's got a designer. I told him that, I want to see more, instead of layouts, I want to see designs. Those are two different ideas. And we're going to conceptualize our covers. It's hard to shoot covers at events with the midday sun and all that, those conditions. So we're going to shoot controlled, very strategic covers that are going to be really exciting. This magazine goes back to 1951. So during my interview process, you can look at all the old issues. Lynn Novakowski curated them since 1951. So anyone that's a member, even just a supporting member at $20 for USA Water Ski and Wake Sports, you click login, and then you find the Water Skier magazine, and you can
Wow.
search every issue back to 1951. So like we were saying, I'm a big like mission and vision statement nerd. So I was like, okay, how did this, AWSA is the founding pillar. How did this really get founded? So I started reading the issues in 1951. Dude, these guys were so classic. Like, they loved skiing. All their board meetings took place at like 10:30 p.m. at a establishment in New York. Like, they were at a bar, like forming this organization. and they referred to themselves like unapologetically as ski bums. So
Wow.
like pros would write in from the road and be like, forever a ski bum, you know, and when anything looked too serious, like guys in suits signing a new entity, like a new ski team into business, they'd be like, pictured here, you know, so and so ski bum. Like that was their lingo, is like calling out everyone for being a ski bum. So I want to kind of like rehash that spirit of being a ski bum, because it's interesting, because you're not a bum because you're skiing and you're like making something for yourself, but like
Right.
the bum is like, no man, this is like I was saying, those number one tier professional athletes are like essentially ski bums, you know. So I want to bring back some of that flavor that this organization was founded on. They were arguing about who invented water skiing, and they'd write in letters. So they're basically determining who invented water skiing in the Water Skier magazine. And so this is in the 50s, but people are writing in letters saying, "Oh yeah, I invented water skiing. I was the first to do it in 1926 in New York." And then someone would write in and say like, "No, I actually did this in 1924. I created the first skis." And like they're arguing, and like all of them are wrong. Like it ended up being 1922, Ralph Samuelson in Minnesota, you know. But like I was just reading this, dude. The content is just riveting. Like the origin story of this thing is so cool, and like, dude, it just goes on and on and on, and a long line, long lineage of like people that came before me, man. And that is what makes me like not take this job lightly. You know, even just more immediate history, like the Steve McDermotts and Bob Crowley's and Nate Boudreau's, and like Tim Cullen was the president, and that was a volunteer position. Like all the people I've seen come before me, but I want to keep like digging into those issues, and I encourage these listeners to like use your membership for that purpose. Like it's so classic. I got to start like we redid the water skier on Instagram, so make sure you're following the water skier on Instagram. And I'm really going to promote like established 1951, and it's the best documentary of water skiing in America, of organized skiing in America that exists. And it, dude, it's still in print.
That's awesome.
Like I'm
That's
so
awesome.
happy that it's still in print. We're gonna do like centerfold posters now that can pull out, and like we're gonna go nuts on this print edition. And like there's gonna be digital, you know, supplements to what we do in print, but like we're having, you know, strategy and vision meetings about the magazine, and I'm just super fired up that it still exists and we have a chance to like make something out of it.
That's so awesome. I was thinking about in my grandparents' garage growing up, you know, they had been in the sport since the 1950s competing. And I grew up going to their house, and in their garage was all posters. One of which, and they were all ski posters, one of which was Skip Gilkerson in a blue costume going like this. You probably have seen that one,
On the
right? And
shoe
then, of
skis,
course,
yeah.
like Sammy getting pulled over the jump with the jet and all of those cool posters. And I was just telling my wife the other day, I'm like looking around our garage, I'm like, we need to get some posters up. She's like, really? And I'm like, well, now I got my answer. Like the
Got
posters.
you. We got you,
Well,
dude. Yeah, we're going like
well,
Carl Roberge on the trick in the body glove poster and like all that
yeah,
stuff. Yeah.
all that stuff. Well, one thing, and as we kind of start to round things out here, that I've really noticed about this interview, Kevin, is like your attention to detail as far as a lot of things, but rhetorically, the way you even look at words and how they're used and the importance of those words, right? At the very beginning of the podcast, you were talking about really this is more of a community. Of course, it's family in the sense of the community, but probably better described as a community. Then we take a look at something like, you know, the 1951 Water Skier magazine, where there's an impression of maybe a ski bum and how that plays now. And I was telling you offline the other day, I said, it's amazing when we go to collegiate water skiing, the value for parents to invest in their kids to be in this sport. I looked around at our team. I've got, when I was at ULM, multiple world champions, pharmacists, lawyers, dentists, um, fighter pilots. I mean, I could go down the list of what this sport offers the individual and their family. And maybe when it's time to uh maybe get that real job, right? We always we always say, oh no, I gotta get a real job. But
Mhm.
that determination, that dedication that this sport builds into you, you can pretty much go do whatever you want to do and still stay connected for a lifetime to this sport, which it's not this ski bum type of mentality. It's really kind of this lake life mentality that you can achieve a very high level on many different ways of in which you approach life. I just wanted to get your comment on that.
Oh, I mean, dude, you summed it up like right there. Like lake life is the best life. Um, there's throughout a lifetime, there's multiple ways you can insert yourself and be a part of USA water ski and wake sports. Take Hank Amos, for example, grew up on a show team outside of Tampa. Um, Started skiing at Cypress Gardens and all that stuff, became a freestyler on the freestyle tour, maybe my favorite freestyler ever. And then he went on into stunt work because of that. You know, is a stuntman in The Matrix and other high-end movies. Decided he misses it a little bit. Comes back, does like, you know, some cameos and some show skiing. Then he gets into like ski racing. He just did the Catalina
Oh, wow.
deal. Yeah, Catalina
Wow.
curse. His double handle broke. So like halfway through, he had to just hold on to a conventional tow rope, still finished. And then he like comes to Winter Haven and starts teaching adaptive.
Hmm.
You know, like adaptive is such a cool area. I've worked with them, you know, on and off over the years. And like, so there's Hank like inserting himself in the four
Sure.
different, you know, opportunities that we have. And I've seen that a lot. And there's some other names that I hope to release later that are looking to strap on the boots again. I won't put any pressure on them. But there is a lifetime of activity that you can participate in, and we're going to be covering that.
And really going back to the good nationals, I mean, my kids at 7 could be skiing there this year, and it could go all the way up to competitors that are 90 something years old. Like in our region, it's Elgin Faulkner, and it's just unbelievable. Like it's just the opportunities and to stay active and then have this incredible lake lifestyle is right at our disposal. And with that being said, I ask all of my guests, Kevin, I water ski because.
It's fun, dude. It's just fun. Like there's nothing more exhilarating than being on the water. I mean, for me, over 99% of my experiences on the water are a good one, and I feel better afterwards, and it's something I love to share with family and friends. Um, it's an escape. It really is. No matter what, everyone's got certain stresses in your life. Like, go hit the water. It's the best therapist I've ever had. If you start out your day with a ski session, I mean, you know that feeling. You go into work, you're like, I'm gonna crush today, you know? So to sum it up though, man, it's just fun. It's the most fun activity and exhilarating experience that I could ever imagine.
Awesome, awesome. Well, Kevin, where can people get connected to USA Water Ski and Wake Sports, and how can they get involved? And maybe even if they have questions after this interview's over and they listen to it and they just want to shoot you a note, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Sure. You know, and I'm gonna push our supporting membership because you get the Water Skier magazine and so many other benefits and discounts on even Delta Airlines, all kinds of discounts on sunglasses and apparel and stuff in our world. That's usawaterski.org. If you want to support this thing, you want to know what you can do, you want to help this thing grow, you want to see this thing last for decades into the future, please become a supporting member at $20. Go check out all those old issues of the Water Skier. But that's under usawaterski.org. Login and membership are the tabs for that. On Facebook, USA Water Ski and Wake Sports. Facebook loves us. Like we're big on Facebook. Instagram, we're trying to grow some more. It's USA-WS on Instagram. And then The Water Skier on Instagram as well. Yeah, it's a really exciting time. I got some questions for you actually before we peace out. Maybe just one question, but
Yeah, go
you know,
ahead.
you sent me some photos of you skiing, and like I knew you as a commentator. I knew you were obviously a skier, but like you rip, man. And I definitely want to put some of those photos out there so people get to meet our hosts a little more. but you've had a unique opportunity. I've listened to a lot of your interviews, and I've seen the list of hitters that have come through here. Like, what have you learned about it? Is how could you summarize like your knowledge and your understanding now compared to before you started doing this podcast?
Yeah, it's extremely humbling to be in this position. Like you, I know you're a little bit older than me, but I grew up watching ESPN, and my mom was on the world team in the 1970s with the LaPointes. And, you take a look at Liz Allen and Wayne Grimdage and all of that generation. And then going back to my grandpa, who would build boats out of his garage to support his lake life because he was a school teacher in the summer, and then going all the way up and growing up as a kid in Colorado, where he was the promo guy. My grandpa was for Mastercraft. So he would have Rob Shirley on the phone. They would be talking. And then, I'd be a kid at a boat show, at a Denver boat show, and there's Skip Gilkerson, there's Wade Cox, there's Rob Shirley, there's Sammy Duvall. And I grew up watching a lot of those things, and then going through my own ski career, was able to connect with a lot of those people over the years. But to have the ability to reflect on all of those experiences and then ask them questions as a host is like, wow. Like, when I go and I ask Sammy, like, what was that jump like that you were describing, where he's turning into the ramp that looks like Mission Impossible, and we pull it up and there's just the crowd watching, and to get his perspective and to get his feelings and emotions and everything that would have led up to that point is a totally different perspective on this side than just viewing that picture or viewing the ESPN podcast. And what I've learned is, whether we interview someone that's a current star, a rising star, or a legend of our sport, their love never leaves and it just continues to grow. And the whole interview, they're just smiling and they're so happy to be a part of it. They know what it means because outside of the sport, there's very few opportunities in life that you can live this massive lifestyle and to do the cool things that we could do, and to hear those stories and reflect on it as a dad now. And I'm bringing my family into the sport, and I've got twin boys that are 7 that, hey, I got them trick skis for their birthday, and we can go to regionals at Bennett's. Oh, and by the way, if you qualify, you can go to Bakersfield. We can jump on a plane to go to California. Introducing that lifestyle and what it can be for them is like, I had really a lot of fun doing it, no doubt, but there's this new sense of gratitude when I look at our rich history and what we have, and then now being able to participate in it. And now I'm like, who are we going to have on next on the podcast? And then, like, conversations with you of like, how do we use our platform to expand, to make it bigger, and invite other sports in to teach them about this lifestyle? Because I, and I think, people would agree, like, Freddy Krueger, for example, if you take someone over the jump for the first time, they're never going to forget that. In fact, if you just get them up on a pair of skis, they're always going to be remembering the day they water skied.
How
And
significant is that? Yeah.
yeah,
Your first
it's
moment,
like,
everyone remembers it and talks about it. Like,
yeah, and it's just like, well, now I have this opportunity and this platform to interview the best in the world, and ambassadors, and whoever's out there on this podcast. I just say, number one, it's humbling, but two, I really appreciate and understand what we have. And that goes back to you. I'm extremely excited and thrilled that you're on board. You've got an incredible amount of experience, and I can already tell this is going to be a fun ride, dude.
it is going to be a fun ride. And I look forward to getting on the water with you, man.
Sounds good. Well, Kevin, this has been real, and I'm sure this won't be the last time. So until next time, we're signing off.